Hi everyone and welcome back to the multiverse of 100 plus data science project series. In this video, we're going to be creating here a smart medical report analyzer using Python and GenAI. So that's our demo applications, MediScan AI, a smart medical report analyzer. If I click here to selecting here any medical report, let's select here this medical report one, and I'm going to click here to open, and I'm simply going to click on analyze the report. So it will analyze the reports and give you some kind of suggestions. So this is the final diagnosis of this medical report. The patient have the anxiety disorder as well as the problem based on some gastric issue, GERD, as well as it have the hyperventilation syndrome. So we are going to creating here this application from scratch using Python, GenAI, and Flask. So let us start building our MediScan AI smart medical report analyzer applications. So first what I can do, we're going to creating here a folder called utils. Here I'm going to writing the code for the agents as well as we having one main file. As well as we are going to creating here the applications using the Flask. So let's go on here and creating here a folder called utils. So let's say utils, and inside this utils I having one Python file. Let's say agent.py. So let's say py. Here I'm going to writing here all the codes regarding the agents. As well as you can see here, we have the three medical report in the form of txt. You can see this is a medical report. It having some medical history and recent lab and diagnosis results. All of the things it have. So based on that, it will give me one report analyzing uh, uh, output for that. Okay. So what I can do, we're going to creating here our agents using the grok model. So that's why it's also accessing here our grok api key so that we can accessing the llama model from here. So that's our grok cloud. Otherwise you can also using the OpenAI if you have the money. Because I'm poor, so I'm going to using here the grok cloud, the free and open source platform. Let's go on the api key sections, and I'm going to creating here a api key. Let's create a api key. Let's say applications, or you can say the medi scan like that. And I'm going to give it to here the verify you are human, and click on submit. And then I'm going to copying here this api key. So if I go inside this document dashboard sections, you can see the dashboard how it look like. If I go inside this document sections, and inside this section you have the models. So if I select in the model, then you can see several types of model are available with the developer as well as the context window, I mean the token size. So I'm going to using here this llama 3.3 17 billion versatile model. So let's go on here. So one more thing, you can see here my Python version is selected right now, Python 3.8.5. So I have to selecting here Python 3.12 because it is just running inside this Python 3.12. I mean up to Python 3.11. Okay, if you're using Python 3.8.5, you may get some proxy errors. So better just selecting here the latest version of Pythons. So first I'm going to importing here the LangChain code, or make sure that also you install those library as well in your system. So let's say from LangChain underscore core dot prompts. So let's say prompts. So I'm going to import here the prompt template, because see OpenAI, or you can say the large language model, is working based on the prompt. If you're giving here and goat prompt, it will obviously give you and goat results. So it will also give you some kind of auto suggestions because my one sharp is actually on. So I'm going to disable this. I'm not going to using here the wing sharp. So let's click on the snow completion of the 60 minute. Okay, now I just note here my auto completion code. So langchain code that prompt, you're going to be importing here the prompt template, as well as you're going to be importing here the chat grok, because you're going to be using here the grok cloud api. So let's say from langchain, let's say langchain underscore grok. So you're going to import here the chat grok, because this is an chat model itself. Okay, so you can also use in the OpenAI, or you can also using the DeepSeek model. You can use any of them. So I'm going to using here these ones. Now you're going to hitting here a class called agents. So you're going to actually using here the ops concept in Python, object oriented programming. Okay, so let's creating here a class called agents. So here you're having all of the code regarding the agents. Then you're going to initialize here def init, and inside that you're going to pass it the self, and then it will taking here one medical report. This medical report that are going to pass into here our agents. So by default I'm going to pass it as a none, and then I'm going to give it here a role. So let's make it as a role. So in our agent you're going to using here three types of things. One is for the cardiology, the physiology, and another one is nothing but called the pulmonologist. Okay, So we're going to creating here three separate agents, as well as we're going to creating here one multiple agent discipline team. So here we have all of the agents in and same structures. So that's why to give it here an role. Okay, let's say I selecting here the role for the cardiologist, which will go to the agent of the cardiologist. Okay, so role is nothing but none, as well as you can give it here another kind of parameters called the extra info. If you want to give it here any extra information, you can pass it to here. Let's say extra info, if make it less than none. Okay, so this is nothing but our agents. Now what I can do is simply going to initialize those agents. So what I can do, we can self dot, let's say medical report, let's say medical underscore report is equal to medical report. I mean, just you're going to pass it to here inside a variable called medical report, because you're using here the ops concept. So that's going to also give it here self dot medical report is equal to medical report. And then what you have the role. So let's say role is equal to role itself. And then you have the self dot extra info. I mean, this one that you can see extra info. So let's say extra underscore info, and then you can make it as extra info. Let's say extra underscore info. That's it. Also, you know, to also self dot model. You need to also initialize the model. So let's say model is equal to chat grok. So chat grok, and inside that you have to give it here our API key. So let's say API underscore key. I'm going to give it to here the API key that we copied from here. As well as you need to also copy it here the model name. So I'm going to copy it here this Llama 3.3 17 billion versatile. So Llama 4 is also available, but in this production model, it's not available yet. But I hope so it will coming inside the sections. You can see Meta Llama 4 Scout 70 million 16 in a struct. So but this is nothing but the preview models, but I'm going to using here this 3.1. Okay, so you can also using here the model from here as well as Llama 4 as well. If you want to knit, you can just copy it from here and you can use it simply. So I'm going to go on here and I'm going to use it here the model. So let's say model is equal to Llama 3.317 billion versatile. One more thing, you can using here Llama 4 as well, because it's right now recent and new model as well. It has so many data that actually train it. Okay, the Mark Zuckerberg. So then we have the temperatures. Let's say temperature. So let's say temperatures is nothing but let's just make it 0.0. I mean, it's just taking here the first iterations. As well as we're also creating here one template in our agents. So what I can do, you're going to creating here same one extra variable for the prompt template. Let's say prompt underscore templates. Okay, templates. Let's say I'm going to creating here function because it have the several types of prompts. So we're going to creating here, let's say create underscore prompt, let's say template. Just creating here an function. So need to also creating here the functions called create prompt template. So it will taking on self itself. So you're going to copy this out, and then you're going to creating here the functions called the create prompt templates. So the most beautiful prompt you can give, it will give you the most beautiful results. Okay, that's the actual things behind the every large language models. So don't worry about that. I am also making some course regarding the large language model in our YouTube channel soon. Okay, we're also working on that, just like the tokenizations, the byte per tokenization, what is the cabbie cache, what is the everything we will discuss in later on, how you're creating here the large language model from scratch. Okay, now if the self dot, okay, let's if dot self dot role. So if the self dot role is, let's say, multidisciplinary team, see, so what it be, I will discuss later on. Let's say multi discipline, let's say discipline plenary team. Okay, if the role is nothing but the multidisciplinary team, that's mean in here it having the multiple number of expert or logist. Okay, so no problem, we discuss it soon. Okay, then if it is a multidisciplinary team, I mean if the problem should be solved for the multiple number of doctors or a multiple number of reports or multiple number of agents, it's called a multidisciplinary team. Let's say if I go inside this report, that's a medical report, that's Michael Johnson's. So if I read about that, it has the multiple number of reasons in this person, so obviously to calling here this multiple disciplinary team. Otherwise the problem is regarding the cardiologist, it will just calling here the simple agents. That means this is one mixer of agent as well. So if it is templates, let's say template, then to give it here one template itself. Okay, because based on that it will actually work. So, okay, so what I can do, I am simply going to pasting here one template, and then I will also discuss it later on. And don't worry about this code, you can get this code in the video description as a GitHub link. So I write out the prompt template, so you can also read it here. So act like a multidisciplinary team of healthcare professional. You will receive a medical report of patients visited by a cardiologist, physiologist, and pulmonologist. Tasks: review the patient's medical report from the cardiologist, physiologist, and the pulmonologist. Analyze them and come up with a list of three possible health issues of the patients. Just return a list of bullet point of three possible health issue of the patients, and for each issue provided the reasons. Okay, cardiologist report, physiologist, and the pulmonologist. Okay, so this is the report you can give it here. It's nothing but the extra info, the extra information that you pass it to here. Okay, that's mean that in our medical report, it is nothing but given by the three expert from the cardiologist, the physiologist, and the pulmonologist. Okay, so and based on this report, you're going to creating here an agents, and our agents give me some kind of suggestion based on that, or the health issue that you need to that is issue of the patients. Okay, so you can also check it from here. Okay, so if the role is multidisciplinary team, if the problem is going to inside this multidisciplinary, it will handle them. And then we can returning here one prompt template. So let's say return here the prompt template, because you're already using the prompt template. Let's say from templates. So let's say from underscore template. So you can using here templates, and inside that you're going to creating here, I mean you're going to passing here my templates that we created, that you can see on here. Okay, so this is for the multidisciplinary team. So what if we have the just one single report for the cardiologist, or single report for the physiologist, or single report for the pulmonologist? Let's say our report is just the patients just received a medical report from the cardiologist and the physiologist. So what about this pulmonologist? It will detect it. Okay, it is not coming inside this disciplinary team. It is just going to inside this cardiologist and the physiologist. That's why it has the three agents. So if the role is not a multidisciplinary team, so what I can do, you're going to creating here a template for each of them. So let's say else, and then you're going to creating here a templates. So let's say templates, and inside this templates, what I can do, you're going to give it the prompt of the cardiologist. Okay, and the uh, physiologist and the pulmonologist. Okay, so inside that, it also give it to here. So I hope so we may get some kind of error just because of we are not passing it here the three quotations. Okay, okay, here you go. I hope so. Now it's solved. Okay, so you can see also passing here the medical report to our agents. So see, act like a cardiologist. You'll receive a medical report of a patient's task. Review the patient cardiac workup, including ECG, blood test, heart rate monitor results, and the echocardiogram. Everything. I'm not a doctor as well. Focus. Determine if there are any subtle sign of cardiac issue that could be explain the patient's symptom. Okay, so same thing, just like the physiologist, okay, psychologist, and as well as the pulmonologist. Okay, okay, so physiologist is psychologist. Sorry for that. Actually, sorry for my bad spelling. Is the psychologist. So you can see we're passing here the medical report on here. So based on that, our agent is trying to taking the decisions and it will give me the results. So if the medical report is just conducted the result based on the cardiologist or the cardiac problem, it will just calling these agents. Okay, if the patient had the both three problems, or if the patient is received the medical report from the doctors from the both sides, both three sides, so it will just give me the multiple multidisciplinary team. Okay, that's it. Now what I can do is simply going to creating here the selected template. So let's select that template, because from this template it can selecting here uh, one reports. Okay, so let's select a template. So we're going to select the templates from the templates itself, because this is a list. Okay, so based on the role. Okay, so you can using here self dot role, the role you're passing to here. Okay, now you're going to returning here the prompt template as well. So let's say return here the prompt templates. So dot from templates. So let's say from underscore template. So I just pronounce it as a physiologist. It's not a physiologist, it's a psychologist. Okay, sorry for my bad spelling. बिकॉज जब वीडियो बनाता हूँ उसमें मुझे ऐसा कुछ नहीं दिखता, जस्ट मुझे कोड ही दिखता है, मुझे क्या बोलना है, मैं स्किप भी नहीं लिखता हूँ, जस्ट बोलते लेता हूँ, ऐसे कोड करता हूँ. Okay, So prompt template dot from template we pass it here the selected templates. Okay, समझ आया सब कुछ देखो यहाँ पर. So first we actually import here the LangChain core dot prompt, import here the prompt template. Then you're going to also import here the chat clock, and then you're going to be creating here a class for the agents. So here initialize here the our some default parameter for the medical report, which is passing to the users the role and the extra informations regarding the medical reports or something else. And we also creating here the variables for that, and you're going to assign it to the each of the variables at the value is coming from the parameters. And then you're also creating here our models, the category model. We pass it to here API key that we copied from the Grok cloud. And then you have our models, and also creating here the prompt template that we created the function over here. And if the role is multidisciplinary team, that's when it have the three types of things related to checking for the cardiologist, the psychologist, and the pulmonologist. Okay. So if the user's role is nothing but the one single one, just like it's taking for the cardiologist, so it is just taking here the reports of the medical, and it will give you the result based on that. Okay, and it will just return here in the case of prompt templates. Now in our agents, we're also creating here functions called run, so that we can also running the agents based on the selected role. So let's say def run, and inside there you can pass in the self, and then you can printing here in a statement. Let's say this agent is running. Okay, let's say self dot role, and then is running. Okay, let's say running dot 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 dot, and then you're going to actually calling here the self dot, let's say self dot prompt template. So let's say prompt template. Okay, not this one, I hope so. That you created prompt template. So you're going to pass it to here prompt template dot format. Okay, the function is not here, I hope so. It should be the on here. That's why it not give me the auto suggestions. Okay, so let's say format, and inside that you're going to give it to here the our medical report, that is pass it from here. So let's say medical underscore report, and is equal to self dot medical report. Let's say medical report, and then we're going to creating here inside a variable called prompt, because this is the prompt itself. And then you can creating here and try and accept block. So let's say try and accept. So let's say accept exception as exception as and I'm simply going to make it as a pass right now, just completing the try block. Okay, so in our try block, what I can do, we can using here self dot model dot invoke. See, in our last language model, we're actually using here the functions called invoke. So using this invoke, we can call in here our large language models, and based on that, it will give the answers. So let's say I'm going to passing here the prompt, and it will nothing but giving me here one response. Let's say response, and then you can simply going to returning here the content. Let's say return response dot content. I already making so many videos regarding this grok. If you don't know what is a response and how it actually look like, and what is the content, and how can you access the grok model, everything I also discuss about in so many videos in our multiverse series. Okay, so let's go down. So that's our content, and if it is exception is occur, so you can printing here one error message. Let's say f, let's say error, let's error occur. So let's say URL occurred, and then you can simply going to make it as a e, and then you can returning here the none. Cool. So that's it. Now let's also define here our specialized agent classes. So let's get into the classes so that we can also call it from our main file. So let's say cardiologist, logist, and here you're going to pass it here the agents. I mean inherit the agents, the behavior of that, and then you can using here def init. So inside that you're going to passing here the medical reports. Let's self comma medical underscore report, and then you're going to using here the super keyword, and then you can using here the init. So let's say init, anything wrong? Okay, Okay, it's okay. It's actually processing the content. I hope so. Okay, I need to make it off. I hope so. It will just clicking on this one sharp refactor. That's why. So okay, I'm going to give it here init, and then I'm going to pass it here the medical report, and then I need to give it here one name. So I can give it here the cardiologist. Okay, make sure your spelling is correct, and same thing to do it for the psychologist and the pulmonologist. Okay, sometimes I am unable to speak or spelling some of the words. That's my problem in the vocal cord. I don't know why. So then we have the physiologist. So let's say physiologist. Okay, so I can copy this out. So these ones. Okay, so we can copy here the same thing again, and then we can make it as a pulmonologist. Let's say PUL. Okay, monologist, and you can copy it and you can paste it to here. And now we're creating here our multiple discipline team. So multiple discipline team is nothing but the combination of the three of them. So let's say class multi discipline. Let's say DIS CLI. Okay, C multidisciplinary. Okay, PLI and a team. Okay, disciplinary team, and then you can passing here the agent itself, and then you're going to creating here the def underscore init. So in here into passing here the self the cardiologist report. So let's say cardiologist report. So I hope so the report is extra informations. Okay, you can see cardiologist report, so you can copy it from here, and then we have the psychologist report. Pronounce it as a physiologist, but it's a psychologist. Okay, okay, then we have the pulmonologist, so we can pass it to here, and then we're going to creating here the extra information. So in our extra info we're going to give it to here all of them. So let's say we have the cardiologist report, then we have the physiologist, again physiologist is psychologist. Okay, so psychologist report, and again the pulmonologist report. Okay, so you can copy it from here, and you can copy it, just give it to here some name. Okay, the same name that you can pass it here, and then you can using here the super keyword dot underscore init, and then you can give it to the role at the same role that we give it to here. Okay, this is the role multidisciplinary team. We can simply going to pass it to here, and as well as we can passing here the extra information. Let's say extra info, it's nothing but extra info. Okay, let's save it now. So this is our agents. Now you can save it, and you can go on here, and outside the folder we can creating here a main file. So let's say main.py, and after that you're going to creating here our Flux applications. So in our main file, what I can do, we're going to first importing here the uh, the utils, the agents from the utils folders. So let's say from utils, I mean from this folder utils dot agents. You can see it will also give the auto suggestions. From agents, I'm going to import here the cardiologist. Okay, not cat controller, cardiologist, and then we have the psychologist. So if I let's say psychologist and the pulmonologist that we created. Okay, pulmonologist. Then we also import here the multi disciplinary team. Okay, that we already created, and then you're going to open here our medical report. So let's say medical report. So let's say medical underscore report So report.txt. So this report is given to your doctor. So let's say R as file. Okay. And after that, you're going to open it. Let's say medical report is equal to file.read. Let's say file.read. Now you can we can read in the file. We read the file. Now you can simply go into creating here our agents. Let's say agents. So let's initialize our agents. So our agent is nothing but called, first is called the cardiologist. Let's say cardiologist, and here I'm going to passing here our medical reports. And then second, we have the psychologist. So psychologist, you're also taking here the medical report, and same thing for the pulmonologist. Okay, so here I'm going to passing here our medical report itself. So let's copy this out. I'm going to paste it to here. Let's copy this out. Let's paste it to here. Copy this out, paste it to here. Okay. Now that's our agents that we already created in our agents.py. Just to call it because we already imported from the utils.agents. Now let's create a function to run each agent and get their response. I need to running here each of the agents separately. See how. Let's get here a function called def get response. So here you actually getting the response from the agents. Let's say agent name and then our agents. So let's agents. And then you're going to getting here the response. So let's say response. So how can you get that? You can use it here agent.run. So why is run method? If I go into this agents, you can see already creating here a method called run. So this run method nothing but give it here the response in the form of content. Okay. So we're calling here the functions, and then you're going to returning here our agent name and our response. Which agent is coming from, and as well as the response. So this is how our get response function actually work. Now let's running the agents concurrently and collect the response. See, concurrently, that's been first into running these agents, then these ones, then these ones. That's mean we are not going to running this agent in a single time or in once a time. Okay, we have to run it first cardiologist, then the physiologist, sorry, psychologist, and the pulmonologist. Okay, so for that, what I can do, we can simply go into importing here one concurrently from the features is called also called the thread operations. So we can use it from the concurrently. So let's say current. It's concurrent dot futures. We can import here the thread. I hope so you know about the thread. What is the thread actually in the operating system? And as competence. That's mean if the work of the cardiologist is done, then it will go to the this psychologist, and then it will go to the pulmonologist. Okay, so that's why I actually imported here the concurrent. So what I can do, you can simply going to using here this thread pool executor. So what I can do, you can using here, let's say with thread pool executors as executor. So you can say the executor. Okay, let's say executor. And then what I can do, you can simply creating here the features. So in our features, what we have our agents. So the agent is coming from the agents dot item. So let's say agents dot item, because we already initialize his in a dictionary. So in from this agent dot items, it will give here two things. One is nothing but the name, and another one is agent itself. So let's say for name and the agents in. Okay, so it will just give it here the name. So I'm just going to taking here the name from here. That's the name, and then I'm going to pass it to here to the executors. That's mean, let's say first it will coming for the cardiologist. If the work is done, then the next one should be executed like that. Okay, so what I can do, you can give it to here, let's say executor that you created dot submit, and inside that submit we're going to first calling here the get response, and then we're going to calling here the name and the agent itself. Okay, let us look like that. So you can say name agents. Okay, now this is nothing but my futures. So let's say futures, and after that it is if it is completed, then you're going to calling here the another ones, and also store here the results. So let's say for future. Okay, future in as completed. Okay, and it also using here this as completed, and inside that you're going to give it here our features, and then we can simply go into using here this features dot results. Okay, result, and inside this result it has the two things. One is the agent name and the response. It is coming from here this get response functions, the agent name and the response itself. You can copy it from here, we can copy it from here, and after that we're simply going to store it inside an list or dictionary. So let's store it inside the responses so that you can also printing this out. Let's say response says, and you can pass in here the agent name, and then you can give it to here the response that we get it from here. Now we have our the responses inside this list. Now I'm going to creating here the report for the team of agents, because we're creating here the team of agent as well for the multidisciplinary team. We're just creating here the cardiologist, the psychologist, and the pulmonologist, but we're not creating here yet for the multiple team, multiple disciplinary team. Okay, so it's also creating this out. So let's say I'm going to creating this out. So here, what I can do, we first going to give it to here the cardiologist report. This is the cardiologist report, and you're going to get it from the response. Okay, I mean responses, because it already stored it inside this dictionary. So what I can do, you can copy it, copy this one, and you can give it to here the cardiologist, and then we have the psychologist, not the physiologist, right? So let's say response, responses, and inside that you're going to give it to here this psychologist, psycho, and then you're going to give it to here the pulmonologist, and you can give it to the responses, and inside that you're going to give it to here our pulmonologist report, because it is inside that. Okay, now our final diagnosis should be ready. This is our team of agents. So let's say team agents. Okay, let's say not agents, agents. And now what I can do is simply going to run the multidisciplinary team agent to generate the final diagnosis. So what I can do, you can creating here, let's say team agents dot run. You can calling here the same functions, and this is our final diagnosis. Okay, let's say final diagnosis, like that. Okay, not like that, not like that, not like that. The spelling is not correct. Okay, like that. Okay, diagnosis. Okay, now we run it, and then you can also give it to here final diagnosis in the form of text. We can give it here some kind of styling, but I don't need think that it's not needed at all. So we can simply go into getting here our text output path, where you're going to storing here our results. So in our result folder you're going to creating that, let's say results, and then you're going to make it as a final, let's say final diagnosis.txt. Okay, so if the folder is not available, you're going to creating that. So further it also importing here the OS. Let's import here the JSONs and the OS itself. Okay, so then you're going to, okay, I don't think the JSON is not needed. Okay, let's import it. So we can creating here os dot make dirs, make directories, os dot path dot dir name, and inside that you're going to give it to here this text output path. That's a text output path, and we can give it here exist. If it is exist, okay, let's make it true, and then you can open it and save it, the write the file inside that. So what I can do, you can using here this open method. Let's say text, okay, let's say text output path. So let's say text output path, and inside that you can give it to here w, because you're going to write it as txt file, and then you can using this txt file dot write, and inside that you can give it to here our final diagnosis. Okay, this is the final diagnosis, and then you can printing here on a statement. Let's say print, we can say that f is string, let's say final diagnosis, diagnosis has been saved to this path. Let's say txt output path. Okay, so I'm going to save it, and I can go on here and let's say run Python file. So we're running this one in Python 3.12. That you can see my interpreter is ready. Don't using here the Python 3.8 or Python 3.9 like that. Just use the versions. It's up to 3.12. It's the code one or code choice. Otherwise, also you can using here my version Python 3.12.0, and it is my 46-bit machines. So you can see here cardiologist is running, psychologist is running, the pulmonologist is running, as well as the multidisciplinary team is running, and final diagnosis has been saved to results folder and final diagnosis dot text. Okay, so if I go on here, you can see here it is creating here a folder called results, and inside that you have our results. So an anxiety disorder, the patient's history of anxiety, family history of generalization anxiety disorder, and current symptom of intense chest pain, heart palpitations, and fear of having a heart attack, as reported the psychologist suggest an underlying anxiety disorder such as panic disorder, which is further supported by the cardiologist and the pulmonologist report of the anxiety related symptoms and the hyperventilation syndrome. Okay, quite bad reports. So the gastrological phase reflections, some kind of gastric problems, and hyperventilation syndrome that you can see, some kind of shortness of breath or dizzying. Okay, so we can also do the testing for the another one as well. So what you can do, you can simply go into, let's say, medical reports of one as well. This is for the one that you can see, the Sarah Thompson, the name is. So I'm going to save it, and I'm going to running here the file from here. So it will also calling here the these all of the things, because all the report have the cardiologist and the psychologist and pulmonologist as well. Okay, so based on that, it will give in the report. It's also save it inside this final diagnosis. You can also give it here some kind of random things. Okay, so you can see the hypothyroidism related complications or anemia and the cardiac disease functions and underlying cardiac and respiratory conditions. Those are the problems regarding to these reports. Okay, so now what I can do, you're going to creating here an application that you can see that's called MediScan AI Smart Medical Report Analyze using Flask. So let's creating the applications. So I'm not going to writing this out. I mean, I'm not going to do the live coding because बहुत काफी लंबा हो चुका वीडियो. So मैं just उसको expand कर दूंगा बस. Well, so right now we're going to building here our Flux applications, and I'll write the code. It's not so hard as well. So it's an app.py file, as well as we're having a folder called templates, or we having our HTML file. I mean our UI sections. You can see here index.html. So first, what I can do, I am simply going to running here this app.py file, which can also call the server side file. So I'm going to simply going to click on here to running this file, and make sure that your Python version should be greater than 3.11 or 3.12. It better you can using my version own version that I'm actually use it here. So you can see here it is running here and localhost link, as well as it have the port number of 5000. So I'm going to simply follow the link, so it will opening it inside your default web browsers. So in my case, it's I'm going to using here the Brave. You can use any of them. So you can see here that's our application that's called MediScan AI Smart Medical Report Analyzers, as well as you can see here one name. You can also add here one icon as well. So it's just simple UI. It's just having one choose a file button, and just also one button for analyze the reports. So I'm going to click here to choose file, and then I can choose file from here. So let's choose one file from here. I'm going to copy, click, and you can see here medical report .txt file. So I'm simply going to click on analyze report. So it will analyzing this report. Make sure that your internet connection is on, just because of you're going to getting the large language model from the Grok, which is not in locals. If you want to do in local, you can also do that using the Olama. So you can see here, I just give here my medical report.txt. So this is the diagnosis result. You can see anxiety disorders, the gastrological refuse disease, and hypertension syndromes. So this is about this these medical reports. So see, we just having one headers just called the MediScan AI, also one subheader, a smart medical report analyzers, one button for upload the file, and one button for analyze the reports. Simple as it is. Okay. So let's go on here, and let's first have a look at this index.html. So I'm going to deleting this out. I mean killing the terminals. So we just have it here on title called MediScan AI, Smart Medical Report Analyzers, as well as we're going to adding here the CDN of the tailwind CSS, because for the designing purposes, I'm going to using the tailwind CSS. Then we have in body, and inside this body you having one div, and inside this div we have the another div, as well as we having the some kind of div, some one div for actually the heading and the subheaders. So MediScan AI, it's not a tough at all if you know about the tailwind CSS. You can also use here the plain HTML as well, because in the case of machine learning, your model development is the more important, not the front end. So MediScan AI just having one heading and also one subheading in the p tag, a smart medical report analysis, as well as we having one from tag, and then we need to give it to the methods. And method is obviously post method, just because of we are going to collecting the data from the database as well, because app.py is nothing but an server itself. Then you also give it here some encryption type, that's a multipart from data, and class we give here a space y -6, that means it will get getting here in your space in the y-axis, okay, of the 6. If I see on that, you can see it will creating some space, okay. Then inside that you're having another div, and we make the label name as a upload your medical report.txt. Okay, make sure that your file should be in the form of txt. I'm not actually using here any pdf kind of format, that's why I cannot upload it. But if you can, if you are using it here any pdf file, you can obviously use that. So but for that you need to also do some pre-processing in case of building here your ai agents or testing your ai agents. So when testing this out, you see I just open here is medical report 1.txt, but in those cases you're using the py-pdf too, okay, to extracting the data from the your pdf file. So for simplicity, I'm going to using the textual file. You can also use the pdf file as well, just for it will do some changes on that. And after that, what I can do, we're simply going to give it here on deep, and inside this deep we're having one input box where you can click and you can accepting here the txt file, okay. And after that we're having one button inside our from tag, and the button name is analyze the reports. So the type is nothing but the submit. So how the user calling this analyze report button, it will calling the post method, it will searching for the post method, and after that it will take in the data from the users and pre-process them and show it after here, okay. You can see show it after here. If it have the any errors, if it have the any errors, it will just show the errors on here. So I'm not going to tell you what actually happening inside that, because of I need to first go inside this app.py file, and after that I will make you understand that how it actually work. So let's go inside this app.py file. Same thing that we do inside our main.py file. See same things. So you can see you import here from Flask. You import the Flask so that you can creating the Flask applications, the request, so that you can take in the input from the user interface. Then run a template, redirect, and URL file. I don't think that redirect and URL file is not needed at all. Okay, just import it. Then from concurrent.futures, import the thread pool executor and the as computed. So why this concurrent? So that you can concurrently running here each of the agents, because we have the three agents. So it's not three, four agents: cardiologist, then psychologist, pulmonologist, and the multidisciplinary team. So multidisciplinary team is nothing but also on agents, because this is the combination of the all of the agents. That's why. So take it from utils.agents. We have the cardiologist, psychologist, and the pulmonologist, and the multidisciplinary team. They also imported the OS, and after they're going to creating here an applications app is equal to flux underscore name, and then you also initialize here on upload folder. Where the users upload here any file, it will store it inside the upload folder. So you're not creating it yet. That you can see we are not creating it yet, but because of I testing this out, it is automatically creating here a folder called uploads that you can see on here. Okay, because we're testing the application for the first time, that's why it will automatically create it. And also on result path, in our result path, it will also store here this final diagnostics.txt file. Then you can see os.make did upload folder exit is okay, then true. That's mean if it is exist, we don't need to creating this out. Same thing for the result path as well. Now, after that, you're going to creating here our route, initial route. So our method is nothing but a get method or the post method. It can be get or it can be the post. So if your method is get, you can simply going to access it from your browsers. But in our cases, because you're going to creating here our servers, so you need to also give it to the post methods. So if the request dot method is equal to the post, so why post? If I go inside this index.html, we initialize the method as a post method that you can see. So post method and file is request.file, taking it from the report. So what is the report actually? If I go inside this index.html, you can see here my name is nothing but the reports. So based on this name, it will taking here the data. You can also testing these applications in the Postman as well, because app.py file is nothing but an server itself. I mean your API. So you can also access it by your link as well. So if the file and the file name is end with the txt, then we're taking here the file path and we save it inside our file path. I mean our upload folders. So with open and the file path, and we're simply going to read it. Same thing you can see if I go into this main.py file. You can see right now after that you're going to copying here another line code from here. See this line also in, same thing. If I go inside that, just some filing issue. Then we're creating the agents. We have the response. We have the thread pool executors. We have the team of agents. We have the final diagnosis. We have the final diagnosis text. We simply going to open in this out. Same thing that you can see on that. Okay, same thing, just to replicate this thing on here. So and after that you're going to returning rendering here on templates index.htmls, and inside this diagnosis you're going to passing here our final diagnosis text. So if we had any errors or if we have some kind of problems, we're simply going to rendering here the template in the just edit here on error parameters. And otherwise for the first time I know don't go inside this methods post, so just going to rendering here our index.htmls. So how you go inside here the post method, or how you click into upload any reports, it will calling here this index.html as well as the passing here diagnosis equal to final diagnosis.txt. Now this diagnosis value is accessible from this index.html file using the Jinja templates. So if I go on here, if the diagnosis is here, I mean if the diagnosis is true, then you're going to creating here for each of the line, because it had the line itself, we're simply going to split them with the backslash n. And if the line start with this sign, we're simply going to take printing this out, or printing this out, printing this out, or printing this out, just for the styling purposes. You can also printing like that for line in diagnosis. So you can also printing here the line, okay, if you don't know how to do any kind of styling. Okay, so if the error message is coming up, then you're simply going to show the errors. See, make sure you have the if block, and after that you also have the and if block. Okay, if I go on here, you can see it just having some kind of see, you can see some kind of actually styling that is happening on here. So that's our application. Now you can simply going to running here this app to your file. So if you got any kind of error, just comment below. Otherwise you can send me message on the Instagram, so I'll try to give you um, the reply as soon as possible. Okay, so I'm simply going to click on to follow link again. So you can see here it will opening here in the 127.0.0.1 and the 5000 port. So you can also simply going to running it inside your Postman, just to upload here and file. Okay, so I'm going to click here to choose file, and now I'm going to selecting here report number 1, and then I'm going to click in here to analyze the reports. So let's wait for the answers. It's quite fast rather than the OpenAI as well, because Grok is super fast model, but OpenAI is also good. I don't know need to I don't want to compare it that, but Grok is also fast as well. So you can see how fast it will give the response. So cardiovascular disease, it have the patient have the patient family history of the hypertension, elevated IDL, cholesterol levels, and the potential underlying cardiac conditions. Okay, so you can see here hypothyroidism related complications and the anemia related complications. Okay, so let's selecting here the another one, the last one, medical report 2. So click on open. So analyze the report. So if you have the PDF file, so make sure that you're just using here the PDF library. You can easily access them. Otherwise, you can also follow here my mental health support chatbot that I also created it inside this Grok. So here I discuss about that how can you also use here one PDF files, or how can you process them. Even though you're also creating here the end-to-end GenAI projects, here I also discuss about that how can you uh, actually upload here the PDF files, and how can you create in the racks. But in here, you're not going to creating here the racks. You're going to just creating here our agents. That's why. So you can see here diabetes, cardiomyopathy, chronic obstruction pulmonary diseases, and depressions. Okay, so this is quite bad thing. Okay, so this is the application, and this is how it look like, and that's our projects. So that's it for today. Now I hope you enjoy this full videos, as well as you like this concept. So just share with your friend. Just hit the like button and comment below if you face any error, or if you liked it. So thank you. Namaste.